What's up, y'all? It's Celeste. I know it's been a while since I made a video. I've been really busy with the holidays and all kinds of other stuff. But I wanted to talk a little bit about being gendered and being misgendered. Basically just how I'm being read by people and, I don't know, just kind of stuff about that. Because I went back to my parents over Christmas, and it was actually just me and my parents there, which was very unusual for Christmas, because I have a somewhat big family on my dad's side. They almost all live in Jacksonville, which is where my parents live. So usually Christmas is a pretty big event with like all the extended family and everything, but for various reasons, everybody else was doing other stuff, and my grandfather and his wife, my step-grandmother, whatever, were sick, so they ended up not coming to Christmas dinner at my parents' house like they were going to, so it ended up just being me and my parents like the whole time, which was weird. So that was kind of different than I expected because I thought that it was going to be the first time around all my extended family, where I'm now using they, them pronouns, and like I wasn't really sure how that would work and how people would do and stuff. So I was really nervous about that. So it actually ended up being pretty good that I didn't have to deal with that. I did miss seeing all my family because I haven't seen most of them in a long time. But other than that, it did take that weight off my shoulders. But it was the first time that I was around my parents since I asked them to start using they, them pronouns for me. Which I haven't talked about on here because the last time I talked about pronouns, I talked about that I hadn't even asked Jason to use them for me. Jason being my platonic partner, best friend, etc. I hadn't even asked him to use them because, I don't know, I just felt like it would be too difficult for him to use them for me sometimes, but then not other times because not everybody knew that I was using they, them pronouns. I don't know, it just seemed like it would be confusing. But after I made that, I talked to him about it and he was like, no, I'll totally do that. That's not a big deal. So like the next day, he started using them for me. So he's been really awesome about it. At DragonCon, which was the first time I was around a lot of people that I know in person and only see usually once a year at DragonCon, everybody did really awesome there. And it's just like, it's been really good for pretty much everybody that I know. So it's been like, some people have struggled more than others. Like my therapist has struggled a lot, but she was one of the people who really convinced me that I have a right to ask people to use my correct pronouns and like not to preemptively try to avoid conflict or, I don't know, feeling like I'm a burden on people and stuff like that. It's something we've been working through. She's kind of encouraged me to stand up for myself, I guess. That kind of sounds a little bit more like combative than what I'm actually trying to say. But basically just like assert the fact that these are my pronouns and that this is what I want people to use for me. So it took me a long time, but I finally did tell my parents at my birthday, which was in November. I talked to them about it and told them I was using they, them pronouns now, and I wanted them to use them for me. And since then, I've talked to them on the phone several times, and pretty much every time they've misgendered me. But at Christmas, when I was around them, they did try to use they, them pronouns. They did not do it every time. It's definitely a learning curve for them, but it went really well because I did correct them every so often. I did not correct them every time they misgendered me because that would have been just like all the time, all day long. I would say I probably corrected them about like 8% of the time that they used she or her to describe me, which was still pretty frequently. And they never got upset with me. They never got defensive. They never it never was a problem. And so for me, that's like a huge victory because that was what I was most afraid of. For various reasons, I think probably most people kind of have that fear to some degree, but also I have kind of a history of conflict with my parents, and so I just wasn't sure how it was going to go, and I don't know, it was a whole big thing, but it's going really well so far. Like I said, they're not there yet, but they're trying, and that's the most important thing. I've also asked a few other people to use my pronouns, like doctors and stuff like that. I haven't asked all my doctors, but some of them. And it's gone really well. I went to my dermatologist, and she already knew that I was non-binary because we've talked about being on T and stuff. But I had told her that I wanted to use they, them pronouns. I actually didn't tell her in person. I told her through like the online portal thing. So the next time I went to her, she used she and her pronouns for me, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure if she like, I don't know. I just didn't. I'm still trying to get to where I feel really comfortable correcting people and like bringing it up with people. It's something that I'm working on, but that's part of what this video is about. So I didn't say anything at that time, but like right after I left her office, like literally like a few minutes after I left the office, I got an email from her assistant saying that she wanted to apologize for using the wrong pronouns and that they were going to try harder next time and everything. So the next time I went there, which was like a week ago, like the first thing my dermatologist did was like profusely apologize to me for using she, her pronouns. And she was saying like, oh, I definitely want to get it right. And then like that whole appointment, she never said she or her. So like all these things have been, it's been like a stressful thing for me, and it's been difficult for me to get to where I feel like I can bring it up with people, or I can like even talk about it with people. Because I do feel this kind of like, I don't know, like this like feeling of being a burden, or like feeling of asking too much, or feeling of fear that people are gonna like not respect me, or they're gonna like say something rude, or they're gonna, I don't know, just like negative things that I'm expecting to happen. And so far, none of those has really happened. Like, there have been times where I've like had like people continue to misgender me, but they're always doing it accidentally. Nobody has been like intentionally misgendering me. Nobody has been rude. Nobody has been like scoffed at me or anything like that. So it's going pretty well. It is still like a learning curve for other people, but also for me, like learning how to stand up for myself in this way and ask people to do this. And there are certain people who I feel more comfortable than others. Like I haven't talked to my barber about it yet. I'm actually going there tomorrow, so I don't know if it'll come up. But there are just like certain people that like I would like to tell them to use they, them pronouns for me just because it would be more comfortable. And also I feel like with some people, like the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be for them to then later switch. It just seems like it would be easier in the long run if I just tell them now, but I'm scared, so that's why I haven't. But it is something I'm working on, and so I kind of just wanted to share that and just kind of share how things are going. And like, I don't know, I'm sure other people are going through this same thing right now. I'm sure other people have already gone through this. I'm sure other people are wanting to go through this in a way, not wanting to go through the stressful part, but wanting to ask people to use different pronouns for them. So I just kind of wanted to share where I am in that part of my journey. The other thing I wanted to talk about is kind of related, which is why I'm putting it in the same video, which is that I've talked several times in the past and kind of vented several times in the past about how frustrating it is that I am kind of invariably gendered as female when I'm out in public. Like people read me as a woman. When I'm like in a store or something, people always call me ma'am. If I hear somebody like around me talking about me, they're always saying she and her. And it's just kind of generally like a thing that I've noticed when I'm out and people are reading me as something. Like obviously I don't know how everybody's reading me if they don't say anything. So there might be other people who read me as androgynous or ambiguous or even male in some cases. I don't know. But as far as people who actually say anything out loud that I can hear, it's almost always like female gendered words that they're using for me. Last summer, I was in a store and a guy called me sir, and I was so super excited because that never happens. And it was like this really cool novel thing, and it was very exciting. But it was kind of a fluke because that, like I said, never happens. And so it wasn't like it suddenly happened all the time after that or anything. It was kind of weird also because I had stopped tea at that time. Like it was, I think like a month after I had stopped tea. So it was like the whole time I was on tea, nobody ever read me as anything other than female. And then all of a sudden, like after I stopped tea, they did. So I don't know, that was weird. But anyway, it was just kind of like a one-off thing. Until like a month or two later, somebody else called me sir. But that time they were like, oh, sorry, ma'am. So it was for like a split second I got really excited, and then they dashed my dreams and called me ma'am, and it was kind of frustrating. But that exact same thing has happened several more times since then, and it's kind of seems like it's on almost like an upward trajectory. Like it's not like it's exponentially increasing or anything, but it's probably happened like 5 or 6 times total since like August, I think was the first time with the guy in the store. But like, I don't know, it's weird because I don't really know what I'm doing differently. I'm like wearing all the same clothes, and I don't know, not a whole lot has really changed other than that. A lot of the times it's happened, it's like the person kind of sees me out of the corner of their eye, or like they kind of like glance at me and call me sir, and then they like, after a second of reflection, or maybe they look at me more closely, then they call me ma'am. They correct themselves to call me ma'am. And so I don't know what it is about like my movement or like my clothes, or I don't know what it is, because I'm wearing like the same clothes. I don't think I'm moving any differently, but maybe I am. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's that my shoulders have gotten broader because I've been working out a lot. So maybe it's that. I don't know. It's kind of a mystery, but I'm excited about it. It's awesome. Like I said, it is frustrating when they correct themselves to call me ma'am. It's kind of doubly frustrating because I know that they're like, when they apologize or like correct themselves, they, from their perspective, are like in that moment doing the right thing. Like in that moment is when they're making me feel good or like affirming me. When in reality, it's like they affirm me and then they take it away. So it's just kind of frustrating. And I know that they mean well, and I know that their intentions are good. So I'm not like mad at them or anything. It's just kind of like mad at society because of how we are, like how ingrained it is for us to gender people as male or female, to try to guess which one they are and try to say the right one. So I guess it's kind of similar to the pronoun thing in that it's not quite where I want it yet. And a lot of people are struggling with it, and a lot of people are doing the wrong thing. But I know that people are trying to do the right thing, and it's kind of like I can feel the progress, even though like I'm in this, like where I am right now, it's in this current, like in the middle where it's kind of messy and like not perfect, and a lot of stuff goes wrong. And so it's very uncomfortable because obviously it was uncomfortable before I asked people to use they, them pronouns for me, or before I expected anybody to even consider that I might not be female. It was uncomfortable for me internally, but because I hadn't asked anybody to do anything different, because I didn't expect anybody to do anything different, there was no like really like disappointment exactly, if that makes sense. That's actually like that feeling, that fear of like leaving that kind of comfort of expecting people to misgender me, is why it took me so long to ask people to use they, them pronouns. It's actually why it took me so long to come out in the first place and to talk about gender in the first place, and even to talk about being aromantic and asexual as well. Because it's scary. Like when you are in the closet, it's not fun being in the closet. It's very like distressing, and it can be awful in a lot of ways, but there is a certain sense of security. I mean, that's why people stay in the closet. I'm not going to get into all of that, but just as far as like the kind of faux comfort of not expecting people to gender you correctly, that was uncomfortable. The discomfort that I'm feeling now is kind of more of an acute discomfort, because it is like, and also kind of a more of an exposed or vulnerable discomfort, because I'm not just internalizing everything, and I'm not just like suffering in silence. It is something that like people are aware of, and it's something that I'm asking people to do something, so then they're uncomfortable. So it's just a lot different. And that makes it difficult, but that's the only way to get to the other side. That's the only way to get, like, you have to go through that kind of in order to get to the other part where it's comfortable, like where it's actually comfortable, where people are actually gendering you correctly or using the right pronouns, like, consistently. Now, due to the fact that I'm non-binary and I live in a society that is very binary focused, I don't think that anytime soon I'm going to get to a place where I go out into the world and people are consistently gendering me correctly, because that's just not going to happen. I hope that that will happen someday. I hope that someday we will stop trying to gender people to begin with, because that's weird and I don't know why we do that, other than the fact that we're kind of all trained to do that. But what I want is to have people who know me use my correct pronouns consistently, and it would be nice if when I go out in public I am sometimes gendered as male, or sometimes the people clearly aren't sure what gender I am, or they like guess that I want to be seen as kind of androgynous or ambiguous or something. I don't know. I just like the fact that this is happening at all, that I'm sometimes being called sir, even if just briefly, is like, it is progress, and it is like something that I'm excited about, even though it's not very much and it's not like where I want to be, but it's moving in that direction. So it's something I'm kind of celebrating. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and why, like, and how it's making me feel, which I just did. So what I've kind of learned through all of this is that most people, at least most people in my life and most people I've come into contact with, I feel like most people want to do the right thing. Most people want to use the words that make you comfortable. Most people want to gender you correctly. The obstacles to them doing that are, one, they are guessing what gender you want to be called or read as, and they're guessing wrong. So, like in my case, if I'm called sir and then the person corrects themselves to call me ma'am, what they're actually doing in that moment is trying to show kindness. They're trying to affirm me. They're trying to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I misgendered you. I do not want to misgender you. I want to gender you correctly. So here is me fixing that mistake. Now, the fact that they're not doing it like in the way that makes me actually comfortable, in the way that actually matches who I am, is frustrating for me, and it's like disappointing for me. But at the same time, it does show that they're trying to be kind and respectful of me. And then the other obstacle is just people not being used to it yet, not being exposed to it yet, not understanding how to use they, them pronouns especially. I've had a lot of people ask me how to use them. And so in some situations, they might even want to use them, but they're not sure how and they're afraid to do it wrong. So I think a lot of it, other than people just like making like guessing the wrong thing, is just people not really knowing how to use pronouns and not really knowing, I don't know, they're just not used to it yet. They just don't know how it works. And they just like in their mind, it just isn't there yet. It's just not like a thing that their mind has really wrapped itself around yet. They might know that they, them pronouns exist and they might like understand them to a degree, but their brain hasn't yet like solidified that concept yet so that it's like there all the time. So I think both of these things over time will get better through education and visibility and us talking about it. So it is still difficult right now. It is still kind of an uphill climb, but I really do believe that most people want to use the right words. They're just struggling with it because it's new to them and they just need kind of guidance and patience. Now, there definitely are people who are either like deliberately being jerks and misgendering people on purpose, or are just not really making the effort, and like that's not cool. Like you should definitely make the effort. Of course, it's okay to make mistakes, but you should be trying. That's kind of non-negotiable. But as far as the people who are trying and just are struggling with it, like in those cases, I feel like there is some patience required. A couple of times when I've been called sir and then ma'am, I've responded something like, oh, I'm actually neither. And both times the people didn't entirely seem to get what I meant by that. And I didn't really want to get into a whole big thing about my identity, like while I was standing at a counter. But the second time was at the pharmacy, and the guy seemed like really, I wouldn't say like really upset, but he clearly was very sorry, and he seemed like almost kind of embarrassed. And um, he said something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, and next time I'll remember," something like that. And I don't know, it just kind of like really changed how I saw these kinds of interactions, because um, going into them, what I kind of expect is for people to be annoyed that I'm asking them to do something, or to be like, to think it's like beneath them, or like, I don't know, just think it's some like stupid like thing that they have to learn some new thing. And the reason that I think that is because there are people who feel that way and are very vocal about it, especially online. But I think there are also a lot of people like this guy, who want to be compassionate and learn the right things and do the right things. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen this guy, and he like wanted to go out of his way to like remember next time that I come into the pharmacy, like what words to use for me. Like, I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's how everybody should be, but it's still pretty awesome, you know? So that kind of helped me reframe these situations as not being like a conflict, and not being a thing where I have to defend myself, or like going into it expecting something bad to happen. Because from his perspective, it probably was like the other way around. It probably, from his perspective, was like he felt really embarrassed, and he felt like he had done something wrong, and like he wanted to fix things, and like he was afraid that he would do the wrong thing, and stuff like that. And that's not really how I had seen it before. So the more I push myself to say something to people, or correct people, like the more it's helping me kind of pull myself away from expecting the worst, or from assuming that everybody thinks that I'm asking too much, and all that sort of thing. And having interactions like this has helped me see it from a different perspective. So of course I'd like to hear from other people in my situation, other trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming people who have asked people to use different pronouns, or who are misgendered, and like, what do you say? Do you say anything? Do you just kind of take it? Do you correct the person? How do you deal with that? And then I'd also like to hear from cis people, or really anybody who has dealt with like either realizing you've misgendered somebody, or not being sure how to gender somebody, and like, what information would you want from that person? Like, do you want them to correct you? Do you want them to give you their pronouns? Do you, like, I don't know, just kind of like, what would you want them to do in that situation to help you out? I might make a whole video on like how to learn somebody's pronouns, or like how to start using different pronouns for somebody, or something like that. So it would be really useful to know from other people like what would help you, like if whether it's something that has actually helped you in the past, or if it's something that you haven't had anybody do for you, but you feel like would be really useful if you're trying to learn different pronouns for them. So I don't know, put all that in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see more of my future content. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.